Come on up. Any colorful name, just direct them to me.
Yeah. I think we'll be a little nicer. Hello and good morning. My name is Justin Hruby of the SS United States Preservation Foundation, and I have spoken here before the board in previous meetings. One of my main concerns I have regarding the proposed sinking of this historic vessel is the apparent lack of preparation in regard to the regulatory impacts and violations reefing the ship could cause. I presented previously regarding the hazards of the zinc chromate and hexavalent chromium that we know are on board the ship and the extreme impact they could have to human and marine life. Okaloosa County has made the assumption prior to purchasing the ship and to this day that the EPA will not require the removal of zinc chromate primer, but this is yet to be determined, and the county has not budgeted for this potential major expense. Your natural resources chief tells this board that the hexavalent chromium will simply be reduced to a less toxic trivalent chromium in the ocean water. This is unfortunately an oversimplification. It's inaccurate, a disservice to the public, and backed up by experts in the biogeochemistry field. Other major regulatory requirements which appear to have been overlooked are the many Endangered Species Act violations reefing this ship has the potential to cause. To the best of my knowledge, an environmental impact study has not been performed by the county. If one has been performed, I would certainly like to review it. As per NOAA Fisheries website, there are currently 20 threatened and endangered species that make their home in the Gulf waters that have the potential to be impacted by the toxins released from this ship, boat traffic to and from the dive site, and noise pollution. Some of these species include the giant manta ray, 5 different species of sea turtles, the Gulf sturgeon, Nassau grouper, the oceanic white-tip shark, Brutus whale, and Rice's whale. Although both whale species are critically endangered with population estimates of only around 50 individuals each, Rice's whale is a newly discovered species as of 2019. In the past, some species protected by the Endangered Species Act have been lost. If the Rice's whale is lost, this would be the first large whale protected under the act and one of the biggest, not only in terms of the size of the animal, but in terms of its ecological importance to be lost. Rice's whale is the only large whale that's found exclusively in the Gulf waters of the United States and can grow upwards of 40 feet in length. It's uniquely an American whale that few know about, which interestingly does make a unique parallel to the potential demise of the SS United States, as it's in a similar situation here. Polluting the waters in which endangered species live and the potential take, as the as the Endangered Species Act defines it, as take is will prevent or disrupt. It has the potential to prevent or disrupt the planned reefing of the United States, as the potential take of these organisms is a violation of the Endangered Species Act. So there are real outstanding regulatory issues surrounding the reefing of this vessel that have not been fully reviewed by government agencies yet, and it's just seemingly very unfortunate the county did not investigate these consequences further before proceeding and purchasing the ship.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Perry. And just to remind all our speakers, we do have the time limit of 3 minutes, just to make sure we can get through all the speakers and get everyone's comments in. So thank you.
I'll try my best. You know how difficult that is for me. I'm just going to follow up some of the things Mr. Hruby has talked about and everything, but I do want to go over a few items as that was presented at the December meeting where I was here by your Coastal Resource Department and manager, and some of the items that was pertained to that and everything. There was public concern about the budget. Another lady that spoke as well, Ms. Wolf, raised the issue about the single source thing. So we all know this kind of stuff took place. The significant thing is the national guidance document, one of the 5 that's in the contract and everything, which is best practice of proper preparing vessels for intended artificial reefs. This document, again, was prepared in 2006, long before, and doesn't include the Oriskany, which was completely done by the Navy and everything. Doesn't apply, and nobody had the foresight to look at a large ship like this. So there's many things that have fallen through the cracks and are not being addressed by these regulatories. I bring them up many, many times. One of the things in there is floatable items. And if you go back to the summer of 2024, pre-acquisition tour where your coastal resource manager and your contractor are on board. They're saying, no, we don't have to do this. We don't have to address this. Floatable items, but it's in your practices. There's many other things. We submitted some reports to your county clerk. Lead-based reports where one is exceedingly high, and that is indicated, and that's the overhead of the prom deck. And I mentioned this, and there's full of insulation above it, and you're not removing anything to address that. And now it's all floatable items. These are all clearly identified in your best practices, but it appears that you're not addressing these items. So even though you're saying you're going to follow these guidelines, you're skipping steps. And this is stuff that needs to be looked at. With that said, the other documents you are well aware of and everything like that. Back in September, we brought up the initial issue. In fact, the subject zinc chromate has been brought up every time I've spoken to you since March and everything. Every meeting it's been brought up. In September, Commissioner Mixon had said we'll table it and have it as agenda item. It was an agenda item for your county coastal resource manager in December. He gave a presentation, but there was no open discussion for other stuff. So we are going to kindly send you an email per instructions and request this be added as an agenda item in for the September or for the January 20th meeting. We have expo testimony we'd like to submit with that. Or a gentleman, our PhD that Mr. Hruby mentioned and everything like that. He cannot attend, but we would like to be able to have that on a Zoom call so you can listen to his 10-minute thing and give and hear what he has to say about this. So we will be submitting that and requesting that to be added to the agenda item. With that said, and as Mr. Hruby has clearly said, there's many things that need to be done. I know you guys are trying to do the best, but there's lots of things that aren't being done because you just don't know, your team doesn't have the awareness of the things that they should do. They're not dumb. They're just not looking, as the old cliche, you can't see the forest for the trees. Thank you.
All right, our next speaker, Steve Perry.
Thank you for allowing me to speak once again.
Oh, if you'll push the button. Thank you.
I'm going to continue speaking on some of the things I brought up before as well. But the most important thing is the 5 documents you guys are using for this reefing project. And you guys know them. I could read them time, but it takes up time and everything. But these documents were all designed when you sink small boats, or as the coastal resource manager gave his presentation, chicken coops, tetrahedrons and stuff. The ship is something completely different. And yes, as a result, there's lots of things that aren't covered and you need to be proactive. In fact, during the discussions previously, Mr. Goodwin, you said you'd be in disarray if you weren't doing your job in answer to someone else. Ketchel asked Mr. Albury about, as an engineer, what information or what's your thoughts on that? I think it was about the roadway and the elevated roadway around the mound and stuff like that. I've been here now every month since March, and you have my contact information. It's been 100% feedback to you, nothing back to me in any manner, not a question or anything. We gave you documentation. I intend to give you the 70-page report, which you've already had since March, so you can have it. The Coastal Research Department has stated numerous times all the testing they've been doing, paint and everything else, is PCBs. Now, we know oil's been removed and all that kind of stuff, but there's a lot more things you need to test for. Ms. Koch knows this and everything, other than PCBs. Lead, and I told you about the report that shows the lead concentrations in some of the paint, but you're not addressing that because it's not in one of those 5 documents and everything. You need to be proactive. Lack of a better statement, and I apologize if it sounds like I'm criticizing the board or the Coastal Resource Department for the work they're doing, but basically from the takeaway from the December meeting, everything was significantly, not completely addressing after he gave you an update, was on a reactionary basis. These were unforeseen. We didn't anticipate this. You brought up other items related to the offshore munitions and all these things that we've brought up. Instead of being proactive, they're acting reactionary. And unfortunately, in my opinion, and no disrespect to the board, you guys have done nothing but congratulate that department for their wonderful work without asking or questioning why they didn't think or be proactive in these things. The life and work in a technical field, and I'm an engineer, is you must be proactive. You must ask those questions and everything, because this project is something completely off the scale that other entities, outside government agencies like the Navy, have never done. The Navy has experts. The Maritime Commission has experts. They do all this. They've towed hundreds of thousands of ships down to be scrapped since World War II. They know what they're doing. You guys are, lack of a better description, newbies at it, but you haven't asked or done any feedback back to them or asked someone with expertise like myself with 40 years experience, sailed across every ocean in the world, been to every continent of the world. Well,
Are you suggesting that the safer thing with the boat would be to have it scrapped instead of sunk?
no, I'm not saying that. There are alternatives and everything. I'm not asking you guys to, change your direction. I'm pointing out the contaminants on board that need to be addressed that aren't in your 5 guidance documents, because those 5 guidance documents are issued related to sinking the skipping Sioux and putting concrete tetahedron. The best thing is go to the reef line. Miami Beach just sank 22 concrete cars. It's a beautiful dive site. You can snorkel. You don't even need a tank. That's the way you do responsible reefing. You guys are doing something 20, or I think he said 25 miles offshore in Section C, outside the range of the Eglin Air Force Base and everything. So it's dangerous out there. Look at the fog that was here this morning. Sure, it's cleared away, but what happens typically on a day when you can't go diving? What happens there? Mr. Fogg, your Coastal Research Manager mentioned about Dan. Yes, there is that. I spoke to Mr. Mixon, and he told me privately, I think in July, that you guys were looking at a grant and a hyperbolic chamber, but you hadn't had a chance to share that with the board. But nothing publicly has ever been said to anything about the dangers divers are going to face, as I've said, and I hate to use that term because I don't want you guys to become known as the diving death capital of America. But this ship is going to be dangerous for divers. It's going to encourage, like kids telling them, don't take candy, don't splash the puddle in the street, and they're going to do it. You're creating a situation that is encouraging unsafe diving practices. And you need to be aware of that and ask your department runner, have you examined this? Have you thought about these issues?
But wouldn't that be true even if we cleaned everything you could think of off the boat? You'd still have that. Even if we got all the paint, all the lead, all the anything, that issue would still be there.
But if you close up the boat so they can't swim down the forward hatches down 70 feet to go into a cargo hold where no holes are going to be cut and it's pitch black, but they've opened it up. That's the stupidest thing that could have been done. You should have welded the hatch covers closed, punched a bunch of holes, make sure it floods, and that way nothing but fish can get in there. But you opened up and allowed divers to swim down the elevator shafts. Why? A 6x6 elevator shaft with a tank. Why would someone want to swim down something, 70, 80 feet, hoping to look at something inside? And you guys all been on board. There's nothing on board to see except for zinc chromate. There's nothing inside. There's not a piece of bridge equipment like the Oriskany. You can't look at anything. And the worst thing is your Coastal Resource Department has said they intend to swim around the engine rooms. Please look at the pre-acquisition tape. I just reviewed it again last night where they walk through the engine. I spent a lot of time in those things. That is one of the worst places. And I guarantee you cannot swim through the engine room on the Oriskany, the Vandenberg, or the Spiegel Grove, or any of those things. Those are not accessible spaces. And it's just crazy to ask divers to do that. And you're going to be down at nearly 150, 160, beyond the safe diving limits of 150 feet. So these are just issues. I want you guys to be proactive instead of just saying it's okay. We think you're doing a great job. Asking questions.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
All right.
I believe Ms. Cox has a
I wanted to
question.
clarify, Mr. Perry, because you and I have had discussions about this before and publicly at that I have mentioned previously that I have worked with hexavalent chromium. I have also worked with the EPA and the DEP on remediation of highly reagent existing C6 in a C6 pond. However, I also intimated at that time that our staff had been working diligently with the DEP and EPA to make sure compliance is being met. I'm not sure that this should surprise you, but maybe it will surprise you that the EPA and DEP are quite vigilant when it comes to the extraction and removal and what is considered safe for human exposure when it comes to hexavalent chromium. And they are very well aware of its half-life and reagency and continued reagency when that is applicable. I would be astounded to learn that the EPA and DEP have cleared all of these steps for our staff, and we know that they have. I would be astounded to learn that they did that if there were continued reagency of these chemicals on the ship. There's, there have been tests and what have you, and I implore you to consider that the EPA and DEP have done their job in making sure that the reagency and half-life of those chemicals is no longer going to affect.
Well, if I may say one thing, I spoke to Mr. Todd Bennett with the EPA Region 4 in Atlanta yesterday because I was in Atlanta. I couldn't meet with him directly, but I had a 10-minute conversation, and I can show you the timestamp and date on my phone. And he indicated that he welcomes any information we have because they had not have addressed it. They've only been addressing PCBs, and that's coming from Mr. Todd Bennett with the EPA Region 4 in Atlanta. And that conversation took place just yesterday between him and
Ms.
myself.
Adams, if you would please forward to Mr. Perry a copy of those reports, I would appreciate that.
I just want you guys to be reactive back and ask the question, like I've seen here in this conversation with numerous things, or in December about the busing thing or the cost of that went on for nearly 20 minutes. You need to ask these questions. You can't just take everything for what it appears to be, because I've been saying quite along, and I know you guys think I'm harping on your coastal research manager and your department. I'm not. I'm pointing out stuff that I have 40 years experience. And the coastal research manager even said this, and what happened in November of last year was beyond the scope of what we had experienced. That's why you had to hire a naval architect. What makes you think you shouldn't have hired a naval architect to tow a 1,000-foot ship 1,600 miles when all you've done is towed a few boats around, which is completely different? That's like you having a license to drive a car and you think you're qualified to drive an 18-wheeler. It's completely different. And I'm afraid you guys haven't asked those questions. But that 70-page report, I would like to submit it to you. You guys had it since August with the clerk courts, but I'd like to give a full, complete copy that I printed myself for you.
All right,
your review.
we'll have to give it to the clerk first, and then they can be distributed. Thank you.
And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I've told you, take a look at my LinkedIn site. You'll see my entire career, everything else. But there has been no feedback from anyone to me to ask a question.
Thank you. Mr. Maddox, were you wanting to address the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of brief moments. Mr. Perry, a bunch of what you said is just factually untrue. I've had you in my office personally. Okay, you're nodding yes to speak to you about some of these issues. So when you say that we have not had any discussion or there's been no feedback from the board, I have been a conduit for feedback from the board to you, not only on your own conduct and behavior, but on some of the issues revealing to trivalent chromium. Okay, so when you get up and say things like that for the people that are watching at home and the other folks that may have concerns, I need you to be a little bit more accurate on what this county has actually done to get information back to you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. All right, Justin, Hruby.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to speak a little more candidly to you about this issue because, Steve, he's inspiring to work with. He's been working on trying to save this ship for decades here. And he's a testament to hard work and dedication and something you believe in, fighting for something you believe in. He comes here with passion. I come here with passion. I come from Sarasota. We come a long ways to do this. I'm not doing it just for no reason. I love the Gulf of Mexico. I've been swimming in it since I was 10 years old. I'm telling you, there are real concerns here. You have Endangered Species Act violations that you are going to have to deal with, and I do not see how you're going to get around them because you have at least 20 endangered species that this ship will impact with the toxins that are on it. And no, the answer is not to reef the ship because you have something that is unique. You have something that is beautiful that you can never replicate. This is like the Statue of Liberty that you essentially have here. This is a beautiful thing for our country that is a testament for America 250 going forward. We should save this ship so that it can be preserved for generations to come. So there are other alternatives. And I think if we do work with federal governments here and other agencies, we can find a way, especially with the anniversary of the 250 coming up, we can find a way to save it. And as far as us saying things that are accurate or not, everything that we are saying has been validated by scientific experts. Dr. Todd Osborne, he's a biogeochemist at the University of Florida. I've spoken to Mote Marine Lab and professors at my college at Gustavus. They all tell me that hexavalent chromium, it is a known carcinogen. It's a heavy metal and it's a legacy contaminant that will create a Superfund site that will require significant costs to remediate and clean once you put it in the water. Let's not do that. We're smarter than that. Let's not put it down there in the first place and create the pollution in the first place. You know, and there's things that in the past that we've dealt with, such as the leaded gas, the CFCs from the ozone layer, cigarettes. They were all things that were fine at the time that later we found out were hazardous. And this is the exact same thing with the hexavalent chromium. There has not been a ship that has had this primer on it, so it has not been something that the EPA has had to deal with in terms of artificial reefing. So this is a one-of-a-kind situation here. So, you know, we're coming here with the care because we want to protect the Gulf and all of our resources here. And it's about, you know, we just don't want to emphasize money over profit, over doing the right thing. I know you guys want to generate tourism dollars over this ship, but it is going to create more environmental harm than good. There's just no way around that. Sorry. And it's just doing the environment a disservice. And it just really sickens me to see that, because it just seems like we're continuing to separate ourselves with technology from the environment. And this is something that at a time we need to lean back into restoring the environment in our souls, because that is something that is going to ultimately help us heal ourselves.
Thank you.
And this is an example of that. Thank you.
Next speaker, Nicholas Smith.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Three quick things. One, in response to the idea of diver safety. Yes, we're kicking around ideas of how to do some type of funding potentially for an area here, but of course that would come to the board before any action was taken. So we don't have hyperbaric capabilities right now in an emergency situation locally. And so we'll see what the future holds as far as the explorations go. The next thing is Captain Abbott is here this morning. And Captain Abbott.
Also, just a response again to Mr. Perry. You know, I think it's important to say that, you know, I believe our staff is proactive. I believe that they've done a lot of presentations and research and work to be proactive. I also believe what you're referring to as reactive. I think you're looking at responsive, and I think responsive is a duty of the government to do. And so when things are pointed out by, you know, I walk into a room, and if I'm the smartest guy in there, I'm in the wrong room. We're not going to get anything done. But what I do know is I do rely upon my experts. I do rely upon people who know more than I do to bring it to me. And my job is to be responsive to them. And I believe our staff does that. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for all of the work that you've done with this. But I do believe that our staff is doing an excellent job. And I just wanted to point that out as well. Mr. Peters, I think